Hello everyone, we are Group 4. I'm Mina Ote and the other group members are Pierce and Frame. Before starting our presentation, let me ask you a question. Which countries come to mind when you think of coffee? Many people may imagine Brazil or Indonesia as famous coffee countries, but Australia is another country that drinks a lot of coffee and has a unique coffee culture. So today we're going to tell you what the risks are for Australian coffee farmers producing high-quality coffee beans and exporting to Asian markets, especially China and Japan. The purpose of our presentation is to help you understand the risks of exporting coffee beans to Asian markets and to understand situations that coffee farmers may face when they try to expand their market. The main reasons that we have found come under four categories: COVID-19, production cost or labor cost, location, and cultural differences. We will cover these issues one by one. So now we will start from the first risk, COVID-19, and I will now hand over to Pierce.
The first risk of exporting coffee beans to China and Japan is the unpredictability of COVID-19. The virus has had a significant impact on the hospitality industry, which is our target demographic. People working from home drive down their sales, and sudden lockdowns cause it to plummet even further. This creates an environment where they may not want to risk investing in a new coffee bean type because their sales are already unpredictable. Production costs is another major issue with Australian farming. This is because Australia has higher labour costs than other countries that export lots of coffee, such as Brazil and Colombia. This creates a situation where our coffee beans are more expensive than others, so we would have to reduce our profits heavily to have a competitive price. Another advantage countries such as Brazil and Colombia have is their location. Coffee requires fertile mountainous lands to grow with plenty of water. The conditions needed are only available in Queensland and northern New South Wales, where farmers must compete for real estate with high competition for these versatile lands, which investors might want to use for other projects such as wineries and housing. A lack of rain from Australia's dry climate also makes it harder to grow. During the coffee season, farmers can see no rainfall until the end of the season, which can affect the drying process required for exporting. This also means they need to purchase water for months, further increasing Australia's already high production cost. The last risk is the culture of the countries we are exporting to, China and Japan. The political climate between Australia and China fluctuates frequently. If they deteriorate, it may result in Australian coffee beans receiving higher tariffs. Meanwhile, Japanese people consume coffee differently from Australians who prefer to drink high quality coffee from a cafe. In Japan, people like to buy coffee from one of the many vending machines offering convenient, cheap coffee, or they can go to a cheap coffee shop such as Starbucks. With Australia's high production cost, it would be hard to meet the demands of Japanese consumers.
As expressed throughout the previous slides, there's a considerable amount of risks for a coffee producer to export coffee beans from Australia to other countries around the world. Australian producers may become impacted by the unpredictable risk of the coronavirus. This can negatively impact the exportation of coffee beans due to the reduced produce needed by international consumers. The Australian coffee producers will be competing against other countries' differences in production cost rate. The producers will have to consider the low production cost rate of coffee beans in Brazil and Indonesia, and how their customers will choose coffee producers with cheaper rates due to their inexpensive employment rate. The Australian coffee producers will need to consider other competing coffee countries' climates. The dry soil and sometimes unreliable Australian weather will struggle to compete against Colombian and Brazilian fertile mountains and water supply. The Australian coffee producer must also respect the other country's coffee culture and understand how and when the local coffee drinkers will consume the product. This will affect the amount of coffee each country will be needing. The Australian producers will need to acknowledge these negative aspects of coffee exploitation before investing time and money into international consumers. Thank you everyone for taking the time to listen to our presentation today regarding coffee beans.